ATV-TALK, the podcast. Sit down with your host, industry professional, Leonard Duncan, as the men and women from the ATV world bring their behind-the-scenes stories to life. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember, dream big. It could be your story one day.
GBC Power Sports Tires, a division of Greenball Corp, has been producing industry-leading tires for ATV side-by-side market for over 25 years, with tires like Mongrel, Dirt Devil, TerraMaster, XC Master, Dirt Commander, and Groundbuster. They have a tire for your application. Top racers from GNCC, Works, and Best in the Desert rely on GBC Power Sports Tires. So why shouldn't you? Go check them out at gbctires.com to see the full line of tires they offer. Thank you very much. Michael Byrd, welcome to ATV-TALK. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I know that this was kind of like spur of the moment for you, and I really appreciate you you being there and being available.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, if I wasn't doing this show, I would probably be wasting my time like playing a guitar or doing something like just to take up my time. So this
you have ATVs to work on?
Mark would probably want me at the shop this late, but I no. it's the off season, so I gotta unwind a little bit.
So take me back. You've been in the industry a long time.
Yeah.
What got you motivated to do this?
Well, actually, my best friend in high school, he had a Banshee, and he would go race, and I would just kind of tag along with him. And actually, the first time I heard my name on like a loudspeaker, when he was signing up, he put my name as the mechanic, even though I wasn't much of a mechanic when I was 16 years old. We're more like 15, but it takes a while to be a good mechanic. And actually, I still feel like I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn. So, even though I've been around these dang machines for 20 years, I still have a lot to learn.
Well, I've been doing it most all my life. And to be honest with you, you learn every day.
Yeah.
Every day that you're not learning something new about your industry, you're falling behind. So let's get into that. When did you decide, or how was it decided that you were going to start working on ATVs?
I want to say when I got out of the military, like as soon as I got out, Mark Baldwin was the first person to offer me a job. So I went in there and I was just doing shipping and parts, and I was the shock builder. I was helping the shock builder out by cleaning the parts as he took them apart. And those were the days with the chrome body PPs, where the crossovers would stick to the body, so people would spray them down with WD-40. Well, those parts would be black, and by the end of the day, I would be black up to my elbows from cleaning those dang things. But you learn about the parts while you're cleaning them. So when that shock builder moved out, I took over as a shock builder. So it was a quick training when I took over, and that was probably 2009. I want to say 2008, maybe.
How many years were you in the military?
3 years.
What branch?
I joined right after 9/11. I went in, and I was stationed in California on the 15, just 40 miles east of Barstow.
Nice.
Yeah, you know the Mojave, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 120 degrees every day from May to October.
It's okay, dude. That's just normal weather.
No, not when you're from Pennsylvania.
Well, so you got out of the military and went straight to Baldwin Motorsports.
Yes. Yeah, straight in. But actually, when I was stationed out there, I went to my first national at Glen Helen, and my little brother, he stayed on my base, and we get to the track, and he's like, "Here, come on, I'll show you around." So he takes me, and I think Mark and Tim just got those big Honda rigs. They bought them off Kevin Windham and Mike LaRocco,
right,
around 03. And he takes me inside one, and I was like, "Oh, let me get my boots." And it was raining that year. And he's like, "No, don't worry about it." He's like, "They make vacuums for that." So I sit down on the couch, and I trampled mud in this brand new, beautiful rig. So I sit down, and I'm like, "Oh, where's Baldwin at?" And he's like, "Oh, he's probably in his rig." And I was like, "Whose rig are we in?" He didn't get the answer. Tim Farr walks out of the back and looks at his carpet, and I've never met Tim before. So that was Tim's first impression of me. Some guy just trampled mud all through his brand new rig.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Did that relationship get better, I hope?
Yeah, it got better.
Tim's a pretty easygoing guy, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty calm. The only time I've ever seen him get like a little razzled was when I think it was 06 when we were building this TT bike. Now, I still think that's the baddest quad we ever built at Baldwin Motorsports. But I was putting the tie bolt kit in his motor, and just to mess with him, I stood up and I was like, "Dang it! I just cross-threaded this one, and it's all the way in." And he ran over to that bike just to see, and the bolt wasn't even in. I just kind of like, "Got you, Tim." And I think, but then that's when I learned there's things you don't joke about in the shop.
Yeah, especially not with a competitor at that level.
Yeah.
That's golden, though.
Yeah.
Great. You came in basically when we were transitioning to four-stroke.
Yeah.
You didn't get the glory days of the 250Rs too much.
That's no, I just like the local track stuff when I was in high school, which I wasn't really getting my hands dirty. I was kind of like helping change tires and stuff on my buddy's quad. And actually, Mark and Tim would come to that track for practice and just wax everybody. But my buddy's Banshee, my first bike was a 78 Hodaka two-stroke SL, 250 SL. Thing weighed like 500 pounds. But I never had to work on that. My stepdad worked on that for me. So
nice.
But yeah. The 0405s were the bike to have when I first started in the industry, and I think the Yamahas were out, and I don't think the Suzuki was out yet, but I think they were on their way.
Yeah, so you got transitioned right in to the four strokes, where we are now.
Yeah, except now nothing has carburetors on it anymore. It's all throttle bodies. Which when fuel injection first came out, everyone was complaining like, "Oh, you got to plug in a laptop to these things." Like, just give me some good old jets, Like carburetors are so much better, is what everyone was saying. But I just don't think everyone had the education like they do now.
No, none of us did, because if fuel injection wasn't in our industry, you figure in 06, we were behind the curve by years and years and years to the automotive industry. The motorcycle industry was coming into it at the same time we were, so they were still behind the curve as well.
Yeah.
We still do a lot of carburation work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do the fuel injection stuff too, but on the West Coast, in the area we are, it's still. I'm still doing a fair amount of two-stroke business.
Yeah, I rebuilt a carburetor today. So I mean, you ever have an accelerator pump jet, the one that sticks up into the in the throttle body that it's clogged and it won't spray when you pump the actuator. And then you got to split the whole thing and then tap that thing out and find something really thin just to get it clean. That's what I did today. It's like 2 hours of work for just cleaning a little hole out. What a pain that is.
Probably caused by pump gas.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I won't allow machines to have pump gas in my shop.
Yeah. Well, this one got mailed in, and it was we need it for the weekend, so hurry up and get it done.
Oh, I gotta love those guys.
Yeah, they're great.
And they could have sent it in 3 weeks earlier.
Yeah, they could have, or a month.
Right. Let's get back into the meat of the development of a race mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So you shipped, you washed parts, you became the shock guy.
Yeah.
At that point, were you working with the motors at all with Mark, or was it just the shipping and the shocks?
I would tear them down. When people would send in heads, tear those down. I actually left Baldwin Motorsports in 2010, I want to say. But that was after 2 years. I had my own Pro-Am rider. And that was Mark Winchester. He eventually went pro, but he was my Pro-Am guy. Mm-hmm. But then, so I was working for a bike collector, and he had all kinds of old Makos, and I started there in 2011, and he had 75 motorcycles, all vintage motocross bikes. And by the time I left in 2015, 2016-ish, he had 175. So, and it was all restoration work. And going from where Mark Baldwin's over your shoulder, everything you do, to my own shop, and I worked alone. I worked alone for 6 years. That's when I learned a lot. To when I couldn't ask questions. I had to figure stuff out on my own, like rebuilding transmissions and ring end gaps and everything that comes with rebuilding a motor and rebuilding a whole vintage motocross bike. So that's where I got my real education. And then I came back to Baldwin's, and I was immediately on the race team, but I was working for Mark on Saturdays. So when we're washing the bike, I lift the bike up, put it on a stand for him. I'm spraying soap and just walking around looking for, tell Mark hey, there's some dirt in the linkage or this or that. But after a couple years of that, I started getting that fever where I wanted to be on the line again. I was putting whispering in the ear, let's get another pro rider. And it didn't happen. But we were down in Georgia a few years ago, and I look across the pits and I see Chad washing his bike. And I'm like, well, why is he washing his own bike? So I walked over there and I asked him, why are you washing your own bike? He's like, I don't have a mechanic. And I was like, well, I don't have a rider. And he's like, really? He's like, you want to try and do something? And I said, yeah. He's like, I'll call Baldwin next week. And that was the week before Muddy Creek, 2020. So he called Mark, and Mark said, hey, Chad mentioned something about you working for him for one weekend. One weekend. And I was like, oh yeah. He said we had a little talk about it, and he's like, all right, but he's like, don't mess up, because if you mess up under him, that's a big deal. So immediately the pressure was on, and then we get to Muddy Creek, and I think I told maybe Tim Detling, I was like, well, I'll see you on the line tomorrow. And he's like, oh yeah, who are you wrenching for? I was like, Chad Weinen. And it was like, yeah, right. You're not wrenching for Chad Weinen. And I was like, oh yeah. And everyone looked at me like, you better tighten your belt up, because that's not an easy task, wrenching for the champ.
No, so, I mean, that's, dude, you went from sparring with squirrels
mm-hmm.
to the full-blown heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, and that's how it felt Saturday morning. I think my knees were shaking all day. I was so nervous, and it was more or less not because of my knowledge of the machines, just the nervousness of forgetting something, like one lug nut, and you ruin a day, you can ruin a career. So and even like first moto, I was like, "Who's taking the pit board? Are you doing the pit board?" Like asking the other guys that are under the. No, that's all you, Michael. And I'm like, okay. Like and at that point, you don't know what Chad wants written on his pit board. So, and I think he knew it's going to take some time, and it was definitely probably 4 or 5 rounds that year before I started being able to have a drink of water in between motos because time wise, I wasn't there yet. And just to get my own routine down to where Chad was comfortable and didn't have to watch me. And I was comfortable with, sitting down, having a drink of water, talking to the guys, knowing the machine's already ready. And I still have a half hour left.
Break that down for everybody, because not everybody understands what happens. He comes off the track, Moto 1, and now you're on. What do you got to do?
The first thing I do is I talk to him, because if there's something wrong with the bike, I need to know about it. And I want to think about it while I'm washing the bike, so I can think about what tools I'm going to have to grab. And most of the time, there's nothing wrong with his bike. Or sometimes he'll think maybe a tire ball turned and he can feel it. Or, just it's small things like that usually. So after I talk to him, it's rip the seat off, put the plug on the intake. I usually cover the box with like a Ziploc bag to keep water out of the vortex, and I plug the exhaust, get it over to the wash area, soap it down, and then just go to town washing it. Now, washing a bike for a guy 6 through 15 is different than washing a bike for Chad Weinen, because if you get it back under the 10 after you dry it and it's not clean enough, go wash it again. So that thing has to be gleaming and looking like it hasn't even hit the track yet that day. So then after that, I usually put the rear end of the bike on a jack stand, just to get the rear end off the ground, and that's when I drop the oil. So that's draining, and then I go back to the rear end of the bike, reset chain tension, swap the rear tires. So that's the bike's leaning forward, the 2 drain plugs and a YFZ. So it's draining while I'm working on the rear end of the bike. And normally I can have, before the oil's done draining, I have the rear tires swapped, I have the chain lube, the tension set, the carrier is retightened, and then go back to the front of the bike. And sometimes I'll pull, depending on the track, I'll jack the front end of the bike up under a jack stand, not on a stand. We just put it on a jack stand, but he has Fox shock, so it has to be up in the air anyway for when I do air. But sometimes I'll take the front tires off just to clean the rotors and put some spray through the pads. He will, let's see, my routine. I don't do shock pressure right away, but I'll do tire pressure pretty quickly, because normally the bike's, it's already hot out and it's not going to change much before the next part of the moto. Get the drain plugs in, fill it with oil, check radiator fluid. We normally wait to do fuel. Harvwell, they'll hit an air horn to let you know that you only have a couple minutes to get up to staging. So normally we have our fuel on ice, so wait for the horn to do the fuel, but everything needs to be ready by then. Sometimes Chad will want to change shocks. Sometimes he just wants to make air adjustments in between motos. Sometimes I'll get air done and the horn's already blown and it's fueled up, and he wants to change the air pressure in the rear tires, so the mud cap's got to come back off, and and I kind of give him a look too. I give him a look like, really? Okay, you're the boss.
So the relationship between you and him is grown and really good, because riders don't always keep mechanics for a long period of time.
No. And the guys told me, like, before I started working for him, they're like, oh, you'll be fired this year. Like, he goes through them. But I think Danica has something to do with it, because I'll like, when they had the baby, I will hold the baby and I'll play with Lakin, so I'm like part of the family now. So I think it's a little harder for him to fire me if I mess up. I did mess up once though. It was Daytona 2 years ago, and he goes out for his parade lap, and there's not a lot of time for a lap around Daytona for me to prep his gate. So I was focused on the gate, and I'm prepping it and stamping it down and scraping it. And I think it was Detling. Hey, Chad wants you. And I look up, and he's like 100 yards away, and the only thing I can hear is the F word. And I'm looking around like, what? Like, what's going on? And they're like, his seat fell off. I forgot to put the pin in the seat. And the first jump he hit, the seat came right off, and he was just letting me know that the seat came off, and I forgot to put the pin in. So Detling brought me over a big like Honda pin that goes in that we put in the Honda seats, but it wasn't fitting in the little Yamaha tab. So Chris Hunt, Michael Allred's main sponsor, he ran back to the pits. Now he's 60 years old and a little bit, just a touch overweight. He ran all the way back to the pits and got me a pin. So he's on the line and he's revved up because the car's already sideways and off the track. And I'm getting this pin in, and I'm thinking to myself, my finger's through the pin. If the gate drops, Chad's going and my finger's going too. And I'm just trying to get it in there. I was willing to take that chance because I felt like I wanted to dig a hole and just crawl it deep inside of it. But I got it in there, and I got up in his ear, and I said, hey, the pin's in. You're good to go. And I think he had a couple more choice words for me. But he ended up winning the race. So all was forgiven.
As mechanics go, you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Because you're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a couple incidents in my life where I will never forget those moments because ouch. Fortunately riders didn't get hurt, but motors did, because you do dumb things, and
yeah.
Or what I tell myself now, if you've told yourself that it's okay, it's not, check it.
So his seat pin now, like when I have the bike done, it still gets checked 6 to 7 times before we leave the pits now. And there's an extra one in my backpack that I carry.
Right.
So,
you'll never forget that, will you?
I won't. It'll never be forgotten. And nobody around the pits lets me forget about it too.
Well, I mean, if that's the only thing that they're getting you with, you're doing outstanding.
Yeah. That's
yeah. I'm patting you on the back right now. I mean, that's pretty awesome. You're working for one of the all-time greatest ATV racers ever. Mm-hmm. Arguably one of probably the best in history, and you're getting razzed for a seat pin.
Yeah. Well, they call me seat pin. Hey, seat pin, how's today going for you?
Well, I'd just get a little pin put on my shirt and be like all good with it.
I always tell them my championships are too loud. I can't hear you.
There you go. That's awesome. So you've been working with him. This is your 4th year coming up?
Yeah, 4th year.
So you've been 2 times a number 1 and a number 2.
Yeah, just got my first number 2. You're not going to win them all. Chad, it was early in the year. We had like Daytona. He was in last place on the first lap on a track that you can't pass at. Right. It was so muddy. I expected him to stay in last place. He made it up to 5th, and I didn't see any dirty passing. So I don't know how he did it. And I don't even think I showed him the pit board the whole time. Maybe I give him like, this is how much time you have left. But he knew exactly what he had to do. And the amount of focus that he would have to get up to, into those places to where points weren't going to hurt him that bad. You just kind of leave him alone and let him do his thing. He's Chad Weinen. What am I going to tell him? Breathe.
Right. Well, you never know. He could be holding his breath, right?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't see him. He wasn't matching the bike, though. He wasn't blue in the face. So
there you go.
Yeah.
How was his demeanor when he got back to the pits in Daytona?
It wasn't bad. I think earlier in his career, I think it might have been, but he knew that he salvaged that moto. Because you're in last place, and he rode the whole race with no goggles on too. So coming up on guys and passing them with no goggles on, getting up to 5th place out of 15, 16 riders, that might have been the second gutsiest performance I've ever seen him race.
What's the first?
2020, we had a doubleheader in Texas. And I think him and Joel split motos on Saturday, and it was one moto on Sunday. And it was a really tight race, points wise, between Joel and Chad. And Joel got the whole shot. Normally, when Joel gets a whole shot, he's gone. Now Joel had a nice lead, and I think Chad got around Bryce on maybe lap 2, and how hard he rode. Me watching him and how fast he was riding. I've seen Chad, get a whole shot and just leave the competition. But the intensity he had during that moto, I was holding back tears. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. But it was, I was saying to myself, like, oh my God, he's doing it. Like, he's catching Joel. And then he caught him through this rhythm section, or this rough part of the track, kind of like whoops. And that's where he caught Joel, and he touched him a little bit in the corner and then took him on the inside. And then Joel had to ride that, was riding with his hair on fire to try and catch him. And he couldn't. That was Joel's last year on a Honda. I think that's when Joel was like, when Joel's riding as hard as he can and he can't catch somebody, I think that's when he decided to switch machines.
Yeah, that was kind of a shocker to some of us that are Honda people that he switched.
Yeah, even Baldwin. Our whole shop is blue now.
Right?
Yeah, and he's a Honda guy.
Yeah. I mean, we cut our teeth on Hondas. I mean, that's just. I've been Honda since I was a newborn.
Yeah.
So to transfer to Yamaha, and this is what's going to be real goofy when I say this. I've won more titles with Yamaha than I have Honda.
Recent, or even you're probably going back to the Tri-Z.
Yeah, no, I'm going back to working with Yamaha Banshees, where I was Eichner's mechanic, and he rode a Banshee for a number of years, and we won a lot of races on those Yamahas. I worked with Sloan in 2018. He won the Works title, and he was on a Yamaha.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug didn't win all of his Works titles on Honda. He won one year on the Kawasaki. So
on the fuel injected Cowie?
No.
Oh.
On the KFX 400 and the KFX 700.
Okay, yeah. So the KFX 400 was the same as the LTZ 400.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it even a Cowie though?
No, it was better quality.
It was a Suzuki engine.
Yeah, I mean, it was better. It was better quality, I would say, than the Kawasaki. some aspects. I can't knock Kawasaki too bad. I got to ride for him for a season, even though it was on the heaviest sport quad ever built. It is what it is, right? No, that Z400 was, it's Suzuki. If they would have just worked a little harder, they would have had a little better machine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Timmy won a championship on that Z400. And I can almost guarantee you Baldwin still has like Yoshimura clutches in the back by his dyno. He still has some of Tim's parts sitting back there, which is kind of cool. Like sometimes when I'm back there, I'll go through them just looking at them, because just some of that old stuff's just cool to see still sitting around on the shelves.
I think we still have some of the takeoff parts from some of Eichner's stuff, and some of the guys that hanging around. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the machines anymore.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them that I would have liked to have kept.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're too costly to keep. People value them more than we do. So you can sell them.
No, Baldwin still has a White Brothers Carbon Pro, still brand new. I think the tag still says Donnie Luce, who's now working for Yamaha, but he was a White Brothers rep when Timmy rode for White Brothers.
I used to talk to Donnie a couple times a week when he worked at White Brothers.
Yeah, now he comes to the track and watches me work, and I don't like it too much.
I did. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. He is, but when you're working and like, well, you're not my boss, but you're kind of my boss, kind of watching me wash a bike,
So, funny story, Paris Raceway here in California.
Mm-hmm.
This is 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler transition time. Donnie Luce is riding the Ducati 250.
Mm-hmm.
And Paris had like a 180-degree tabletop turn. It wasn't really 180. It was almost. Well, I'm headed towards that jump where you jump up onto the platform, you turn, and you jump down. Donnie Luce passes me on the inside sideways, goes into the air, never touches the platform, and goes down the other side.
Still like sideways and catches and just gone.
Yep. And he was on a 3-wheeler and I was on a 4-wheeler.
But so did you feel when that happened that maybe the 4-wheeler wasn't the future? Maybe you should have stayed on a 3-wheeler?
No, I felt that I should turn the throttle a little harder.
Right.
Yeah. No, I was never going to be those guys' speed.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those guys were just so phenomenally fast. Being fortunate enough to see, guys like Donnie Luce ride and, Steve Mendenhall and Donnie Banks and Shane Hitt. And, I can go on and on and on with these names. Getting to watch those guys ride, it's phenomenal. I can go back to 87, Glenn Helen, Marty Hart and Donnie Banks, banging bars, on TRX 250Rs. Just incredible stuff that back when they didn't have suspension, they didn't have lighter A-arms. And what I'm talking about. I was not the mechanic. My brother was Marty's mechanic. So I was basically watching and learning. Not smart enough to realize that's what I was doing, but you get to see history in the making, and most people will never understand the development of the industry and where it came from.
Right.
Mark Baldwin, for a teacher for you, is incredible because he came in the 250R days in the 90s and worked his way into a championship with Timmy and never stopped.
No, he didn't. And then even when the TRX 450R was being developed, I guess the Japanese engineers were at Baldwin Motorsports going over some things with him and Tim. And then when Tim got that factory deal with them, I guess like a semi backed in, and they just started unloading like tons of parts, like cases and just all the goods, for a factory rider. And I think it was like the first true factory ride for a quad rider. I mean,
it wasn't even that was still a satellite program. True factory rides are under the factory tent. ATVs haven't had that
since WPSAs.
The Suzuki deal wasn't managed by Suzuki.
Huh?
It was a satellite program to a point.
What about the Cowie team with Jimmy White?
That was a factory team.
Yeah.
Can-Am had a factory gig for a short period of time.
Uh-huh.
The Polaris thing was satellite. The Yamaha stuff has been satellite the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. But true factory stuff is like the Supercross guys do. They have a factory tent, factory rig, factory mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with us?
Well, the ATVs have supported it and paid the bill for those guys for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, even like a sliver, like we don't need a whole semi, like just a sliver of their budget. Someone could have a pretty good factory ride, and our pits would look a heck of a lot better with a couple, factory trucks, or even something the size of Chad Weinen's or Mark Baldwin's truck, or just a toy hauler.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then if you watch the videos of the WPSA races,
mm-hmm.
That was such good TV. Anytime I'm scrolling through social media and they're showing one of those races, I have to stop and watch. they're all that good.
I think that the ATV industry needed, like, did you ever watch any of the old Mickey Thompson races?
No.
You need to, because we were on television worldwide in a stadium environment with stadium trucks and cars, and then they brought the motorcycles in, and it was incredible. You still have people today that remember the old Mickey Thompson days, and
mm-hmm.
You were center stage. It was live prime time on ESPN.
That's I wish it was like that. And it stinks because cable's kind of going away. And now they have all these streaming things. So, and I don't know where or if there could ever be a future with our racing on some type of television to where you can just turn on your TV and flip it through the channels for someone that's not in the sport, but to come across it, be interested in it enough to keep watching, and then, decide that they like that sport, and that's something that they're going to, watch regularly. And I guess that's the dream that everyone in the industry has, that one day it'll happen.
You got to make it. We got to get away from the stigma of 85 when they came out with the 60 Minutes deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get rid of the stigma that ATVs are bad, and that they're not couches, and really showcase what amazing athletes these guys are. And most of your motorsports people that have either come from ATVs or have watched ATVs see the level of athletes they are, from your TT guys, which they're phenomenal, and how fast they can make those machines work, and the way they can get them to drift, and just the things that they can do. If you truly enjoy watching one of the better forms of ATV racing. And the reason I say that is because when you turn the lights on and you race quads at night, and the glisten and the shine and the speeds that they're traveling and the way they drift through the turns, there's nothing like it.
Right.
I mean, you're watching poetry in motion, and just it's almost a beautiful song that when they're flowing, it's incredible.
Mhm.
You got to get that feel on TV. Now, the motocross, it's going to be harder. You're going to need to open the gate up. Maybe you run a 2-row system where you're running 30 quads instead of 20. You got to get more guys out there. This is going to sound bad, but there's got to be more top contenders than Joel and Chad.
Yeah.
You know, and you think about how expensive ATV racing really is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, a $40,000 machine to be competitive in anything above B class. That's a heavy burden on a lot of families.
Yeah, and I think that they could regulate that and drop the price for the everybody below the pro-am,
Mm-hmm.
and make rule changes so that you can't do modifications, and then bring develop the riders through the ranks. You know, like your B rider should be riding a stock bike, maybe with a pipe and a ECU or a tuning device. Other than that, that's all they should get.
Yeah, my B rider this year was on a stock bike, but he was competing in like college 16 to 24, and he was competing against guys with hybrids.
And that's not fair.
Yeah, he was winning the first 3 laps at Loretta's against those machines. So he, but that kind of made me realize he deserves a little more than a stock bike.
But you think about it, if you develop these guys from stock machines,
Mm-hmm.
how much more can you teach them about suspension? How much more can you teach them about the way the machine works? So when they get to the pro line, they get it.
Right. They know what body roll is. They know what the front end's pushing. They know all that stuff. And those are sometimes you come across riders where they say the suspension's not right, and then you say, okay, what is it about? Oh, I don't know. It's just not right. But then, and then when Chad Weinen comes in from the pits and he says, I'm getting a little bit too much feedback in the handlebars, change this and this. And that makes my life really easy when I know exactly what he wants me to do to the shocks. And I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to watch him closely on the track to be able to tell for him.
Right.
So, yeah. But that's a guy who's been racing in the pro class for 20 years and, knows his stuff and goes testing with factory suspension guys.
Exactly. And so developing the industry at a different level. And there's B riders and A riders, freaking out. What is this old guy saying? Why would he take my hybrid away from me? Well, because you haven't earned it. You haven't got the education level to ride it. No, Daddy's got a pocketbook for it, but wait a minute. Let's put you on a machine to teach you.
Yeah. Where everyone else has the same machine also.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some of what you see is the guy with the big pockets winning.
Yeah.
When you get to the pro class, your pocket ain't big enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, when you get, or the big pockets win the 6-lap races, but then you get to Pro-Am where it's, 15 minutes plus a couple laps, and, pockets aren't going to get you endurance.
Heart and desire.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at both levels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got to work in the 90s back in the motocross series. It was different then. We rode 250Rs with, roll chassis and different style motors and things like that. But it's similar, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And some people, have asked me, well, how do you know this or how do you know that? Well, you got to figure I've been doing this longer than most people in the industry have been alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of fun. I miss being the mechanic but I don't miss it at the same time.
Tell you what, I just turned 41 this past weekend. So I'm not really old, but I'm not in my 30s or 20s anymore. But at the end of the day on Saturday, we're talking 5 o'clock, I am done. Like it is a day. Like, you're washing the bike 3 times, picking it up, put it on a stand, I don't know how many times. You got to push it through staging and up to the line. It's hot. There's just a lot going on. Plus the stress. So you're sweating more anyway. It's by 5, 6 o'clock, I'm done. Even people talking to me, I can't even think anymore sometimes.
It's awesome that you've had the opportunity to do that in a day. I never got the opportunity to. I mean, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday gig, and you never got to do that one day. Well, I take that back. I worked for some desert teams, and we would race on Saturdays. One of the events was we started racing on Friday morning, and you'd get done. If you were lucky, you were done Friday early, because it's 500 miles.
Well, no, Friday, I still work for Baldwin Motorsports at the track. So I might be servicing shocks or, doing something under the tent. And Sunday, I'm working for Baldwin Motorsports also. So it's a full weekend for me.
You don't even get the time off?
Well, there's been rumors that I have snuck away and drank a couple beers with the guys, but I can't confirm that.
Cannot confirm nor deny?
No, I can't. I can't do either.
I'm sure that Mark has gotten easier to deal with as he's gotten older.
Yeah, he has. But our team's gotten smaller too. Back in 2008, there was me, Mark, Sam, which was Tim Farr's driver, so he drove for the team. Tim was still involved with the team then. Mike Wilm, he works for Honda R&D now, and Josh Upperman, and then my brother Jamie and my brother Shane. So there was 7 of us, and we could put the whole awning up at the truck in about 15 minutes. It was done, 15 minutes. But now it's just me and Mark. And I'm up on the roof with a bad back. Mark's down on the ground with a bad back. It's probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours now, because we take our time. We know we have plenty of time to get it done. But there was a lot more people on the team back then. So that was just me and him. But it makes it a lot easier inside the truck when there's just 2 of us. And we both know what's going on. So he doesn't have to ask much from me. I just know what's going on. He's Mark Baldwin. I don't have to tell him anything. So he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on before it happens. So.
Well, he's been around a long time, and he's also had the knowledge level of people that he's gotten to work with.
Mm-hmm.
You can just name, Wayne Meridian, Arland, my brother, Wayne Hinson. You're talking about super high caliber people, in my opinion, in this industry. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. When we were a satellite Kawasaki team at WPSAs, I remember Jimmy White coming over, and he'd just come over, and he was like messing with me and I looked at Mark like, who is this guy? Like, get him out of here. But then I quickly learned that that's Jimmy White, and he's one of the untouchables. If you're talking about the family, like there's certain people that they go wherever they want. He was one of them. Baldwin's one of them. Donnie Luce was one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
I was really impressed when I got to go back to Briarcliff and how welcoming everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
There were still people there that were there when I was there in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah. And, remembered me when I had blonde hair, not white hair. Yeah, I mean, it changes a lot, but what was so great is the family I think that you guys have back there is incredible.
Mm. Yeah, that's when people talk about a moto family, they're not kidding. You really, some of your closest friends, or even closest, like you consider them family members, are people at the track. Like normally this time of year, like I'm happy the racing's over because like it's a busy summer. But then you get through the holidays and then you start looking at the calendar, like when am I going to see my friends again? Because you spend a lot of weekends with them, and they're full weekends where those are the only people you see. Like sometimes you're out in the middle of nowhere, nobody's cell phone works. And that's even better because then people put their phones down and you actually get to interact with people, and you sit around a table and you barbecue and you talk and I love the track. So yeah.
I totally agree. The putting down the cell phone thing is the greatest thing. Those kids are getting an education in people skills that most of the planet's not getting.
Yeah.
When they can talk to you. How are you? And they actually talk, and you're great instead of they're face down, looking at their phone. I love it. It breeds a sigh of relief when you get to see that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's going to be okay when you go and get to participate in that. We've gotten off track a little bit. I enjoy the conversation. We talked about Chad's moments on the track. You being in the pit box, guy, talk about what it's like for you seeing him out there sweating and working so hard, and you're giving him the board every lap. What's going through you?
So first off, he likes to get the time splits. Whether we're just going to say it, Joel. Like, where's Joel at? Is Joel 2 seconds in front of him, or is Joel 2 seconds behind him? And how much that time moves from lap to lap. So Chad told me that I should start taking a stopwatch with me because he wants his lap time also. And I'm just like, Chad, I don't know if I can handle that because, especially during time qualifying, because you're holding the pit board and then you have your phone because they don't put TVs up for you anymore and to give you the lap time. So you have to hold your phone and you're on some live website getting the lap times of what place they're in, and then you're watching where they're at on the track because you have to write it down in time. Like, qualifying is a pain in the butt, but once the motos start, it's just let him know where he's at, who's behind him and how much, and or who's in front of him and how much. But as far as giving him advice, there's only certain tracks in certain areas where, like, if a line has opened up, because the tracks change throughout the motos, sometimes let them know if a line has opened up somewhere on the track. I don't want to give away too many secrets, but we have these discussions on
strategy,
what he wants to know. But it's mostly times is all he wants to know. And usually he's going by so fast, that's all he has time to look at is to just glance over, see a time on the board, and then think about it and process it in a corner or two. And sometimes he'll switch up his lines. So he really wants to know what the times are, if he's gaining ground or not. There's been a couple times where I mess up and I don't get a time out there, and he'll let me know. But there's never any bad blood between me and Chad. There was the one mess up in Daytona, but that was gone quickly because we were on the top of the box. But as far as like his pits and everything, his pits are great. It's a family environment. There's never any yelling, even if there's a problem, even if we rip an intake boot and have to swap stuff out. Nothing there's never been any swearing or anything under there, and it's a great work environment working for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No offense, Michael, you didn't answer my question though.
Oh, what's going through my head?
Yeah, what are your emotions during this time? You know, you're watching the battle, you're seeing what's going on, you have a stake in it.
The only thing that is going through my head, and this is every race, I am thinking to myself, did I torque the wheels? Like, did I even put gas in it? Like, I get so nervous that I forget that I even do these things. I put air in the right shock. Did I put air in the left shock? And I constantly think about that. Did I re-torque the front wheels? Because you don't swap them, because even if you swap them, the outside of the tire is still the outside of the tire. But I mostly think about, did I do everything correctly while he's out there? Chad doesn't DNF much, I'm knocking on wood, but and if he does, it's probably going to be my fault. Now, the one thing at the Nations, when his carrier went out, there's nothing I can do about that. If the bearing goes bad, I didn't put those bearings together.
Yeah, and he did say that was brand new stuff.
Yeah, it was. Next year, it's going to be a little more brand new. We're going to install it over there.
Might take it right out of the wrapping, all done and new, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have extra work on Thursday before the race next year.
Wow!
But bring it on, because when that happened, I felt horrible. Actually, if you look at my Facebook page, the photo that I have on my Facebook page is a photo of me listening on the radio that Chad's at the bottom of the hill off the track. And you can see that look on my face. But most of the time while the race is going on, I'm thinking about what I did before the race, and basically just watching the bike, making sure he's not coming into the pits with a problem. But there's not. You basically just watch. There's not a lot of time for you to think. You're basically waiting to react, and that's about it.
This is your heartfelt moment here. Loretta Lynn's second moto, white flag. You know he's coming off the track to you. What's the reaction between you and him knowing the season's over?
You know what? It's this year. It was the same as last year and the year before. See, whether you win a title or not. And me and Chad talk about this, that it's more about the process. It's more about the journey, rather than the destination. I remember, both of his titles, I'm pumped up going to the last round, but after he wins it, it's over. And it's over now. All the excitement is leading up to it. When it's over, it's just kind of like, well, yeah, we did it, but now it's over. And I'm already thinking about next year. Actually, things are a little bit different this year because we didn't win it all, and we both want it real bad next year. And we've talked about that. Like, let's, the mistakes we had early last year, we don't want those to happen next year. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure they don't happen. So, but when he came off the track, same after every moto, I walked over, gave him water, and, put my hand on his shoulder and said it was a good year. And we both knew early in the year when a few rounds didn't go our way. Texas didn't go our way. Georgia didn't go our way. Daytona didn't go our way. I think we knew then, because Joel's such a force. Chad's such a force. If Joel has 3 bad rounds where he's not finishing 2-2-2-2 behind Chad, if you're not finishing right behind Chad, then Joel would have known right then and there he had his work cut out for him. And me and Chad knew we had our work cut out for us after the first 3-4 rounds. So it really wasn't a surprise. But there was a little bit of letdown, but there's nothing to be ashamed about finishing second behind Joel Hetrick.
There's nothing to be ashamed of with your guys' program at all. I mean,
Yeah.
You set the bar so high for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I got more emotion from Chad than I ever had the last time that I had him on the show right after he drove home. And I think for the fan, that showed the real human side of him. And that's why I was asking you your emotional take on it after the race, because my last ride with my long-term rider, not good.
No?
No.
It was just sad.
Our friendship is stronger now. Things have happened, life changed, and the importance of the relationship that you have. See, you don't know this yet, but when you're older and Chad's older, the bond you have now will be the bond you have then.
Well, we haven't had a last ride yet.
No, but I mean, what I'm talking about is the bond you have right now. That bond will last for the rest of your life. You're building your legacy, and I love to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have another conversation soon, then, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I got to get the second half. I got to get the first half and the second half of your story, because we only bounced around from the beginning to the end to the middle. Yes, we're gonna have to let's schedule another show. I'm probably maybe December, January, get you back on and have you tell us the rest of the story. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
The team here at ATV-TALK would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com. San Diego's Body Evolution and Wellness Center, with over 17 years experience. Dr. Heidi looking out after all your chiropractic needs, and Coach PJ looking out after all your fitness needs. Visit our website, www.bodyevolution.org, or call for an appointment, 619-987-8875.
Duncan Technologies International. More than 33 years in the industry building racing programs and ATVs around the world. We build winners.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to rate us on all the available platforms and share us with your loved ones. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more ATV Talk news. See you next time.